to introduce our keynote speaker. Andrew Witt is the Executive Director of the St. John's Cultural Council in St. Augustine, Florida. The Council works with the local Visitor Convention Bureau to promote the destination, and specifically is in charge of the subset of cultural and heritage tourism marketing and administers the Tourist Development Tax Grant Program for arts, culture, and heritage programs. Mr. Witt is a past executive director of the local arts agency that serves the metropolitan Columbia area and supports more than 130 arts-related organizations. He is past president of the Florida Association of Local Arts Agencies and has also served on numerous strategic planning task forces and arts organization advisory boards. Mr. Witt is a graduate of Wesleyan University and has a master's degree from the School of Drama at the University of Washington in Seattle. Please welcome Andy Witt.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me. I am so excited to be here. This is my first time in Hawaii. My wife Cindy is down there. So we've been here a little over a day, and we're already planning coming back many times to see everything. Listening to the speakers this morning was absolutely enthralling to me because we're all in the same business. We are part of a group of a growing industry that really nobody knows about. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, about what we do and what's happening in St. Augustine, share with you some of the research and the demographics that we look at, tell you a couple stories. And then I have I brought a copy of our PowerPoint of our marketing plan, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that, but I'd be glad to share it with you at some other later on, either in that in the presentation if we have time. I want to start off by just asking how many people have been to St. Augustine, Florida? Okay. So you know a little bit about it. Frank Haas in his session this morning talked about the curse of a strong brand. St. Augustine, we have a brand, but I like to describe it as being this wide and this deep. Everybody knows that it's an old city. You know, if you ask about St. Augustine, Florida, you say, "What do you know about St. Augustine?" It's old. Well, what else do you know? Not a whole lot. And that is really what our job is with the Cultural Council, with the Visitor Convention Bureau, and the Tourist Development Council, is to tell the story of St. Augustine. So I'm going to start simply by laying out a couple facts. On September 8th, 1565, 449 years ago, Don Pedro de Menendez landed in what is now St. Augustine, Florida, with 800 colonists. Ever since that day, someone has lived in St. Augustine continuously. We are the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in America. And in fact, we talk about the fact St. Augustine is where America began. In that first colony were Africans who became African Americans for the first time. There were the Spanish, who became Hispanic Americans for the first time. They mingled with the native peoples. They became part of that community. And so St. Augustine was the first multicultural society on what is now the continental North America continent. We are very, very proud of that story. And that's what we're trying to tell as we approach the 450th anniversary of the founding of the city next year. We have a whole series of events that we're going between the museums, the arts groups, the galleries, and of course the city. But part of that initial story is the story of St. Augustine and then the sub-stories that all of you have as well. So did you know the first Africans in America were not slaves? In that first colony, there were free Africans. There were some enslaved Africans, but there were also free Africans because the Spanish and the Catholic Church did not believe in slavery based on race. It was based on predicament. In effect, you became indentured. We also recognized, and this is probably from your history books, that the Africans had settled in Spain. If you remember Othello referring to Othello as the Moor was black. The Moors ruled Spain for 700 years, between 700 and 1400. And their civilization recognized the reality of Africans. And so when the Americas were colonized by the Spanish, Africans were simply part of that as tradespeople, as weavers, as hat makers. In fact, we have on the records of the first colony a list of all the names and the trades. We don't know if they were white or black at that time, but I'm always fascinated by the fact that on that list is the name of a gentleman, and his trade is master beer brewer. So we talk about the fact the first beer in America was brewed in St. Augustine. So we have a lot of stories like that. Moving up 100 years, the Underground Railroad ran south for 100 years before it went north. Because the Catholic Church did not recognize slavery based on race, escaped slaves were able to come to St. Augustine. As long as they converted to Catholicism, they were given a musket and enlisted in America's first militia. The first free African settlement is called Fort Mose. It's about 2 miles north of what is now downtown St. Augustine. And they were there as a free community, but they were there as a militia to fight off the English who were trying to come first. Did you know the first cowboys in America were black? Talked with John last night about his ranch. The cattle came from Africa to Spain and then to America. So we talk about the first cowboys in America. Yes, they were black. So all of these individual stories that we are trying to tell, and that's purely the subset of the African American community. We also have a major portion of Minorcans. We also have the stories of the intermingling with the native peoples. So all of this is part of what you and your communities need to tell, because nobody knows that about St. Augustine, and so I'm up trying to spread this word, and we're in the same predicament. So what is cultural and heritage tourism? You've had a couple sessions this morning. It is arts and architecture. It's history and archaeology, food, wine, and other local produce. The farm-to-table movement is extraordinarily strong in St. Augustine and St. Johns County and many, many other communities. But we're talking about the native foods. We have a recent development in St. Augustine is actually the former president of the St. John's Cultural Council, who is responsible for bringing me there, was an entrepreneur who sold his business and was looking for something else to do. And so he established a distillery, a craft distillery in the St. Augustine Distillery. His purpose is not simply to make spirits, but to use locally sourced grains, potatoes, to make vodka, to make gin, and he's using locally sourced corn and locally sourced sugar to make rum and bourbon. The bourbon won't be ready for 3 more years, unfortunately, so we're waiting for that. But as part of the distillery, he's established a museum on farming, and he also has a tasting room, of course. It's also the social and economic and political structures. For us, telling the story of the Spanish crown and the Spanish government and how the history has transitioned between the Spanish periods, the English periods, in effect, the Southern post-Civil War period, and now the current American governance structure is also part of our story. And it is part of the landscape. Yes, we are a sand and surf destination, primarily known. We also have a major golf tournament called the Players. Some of you may have heard of it. But we are much more than all of those. And so our heritage tourism component is extraordinarily important. So distinguishing characteristics of what we look for in cultural and heritage tourism is important to keep in mind. And you've heard the words authenticity all morning long. You'll continue to hear it as we move forward, and you must continue to remember it. It emphasizes the quality and authenticity of the visitor's experience, and I'll talk about some of our research with visitor experience. It builds on and markets cultural strengths. I bolded that. Existing cultural strengths. It aims not simply to describe, but to convey meaning and understanding of broad context. What is it about the Spanish in the settlement of Florida and St. Augustine that is important to the world? Needs personal contact, and you've heard about that. Meets the visitor's demand for knowledge. What we are finding is the visitor doesn't want to watch. They don't want to listen. They want to be part of. They want to engage. One of the sessions this morning said encounter. Our visitor, our cultural and heritage tourism visitor, is actively looking for those experiences that are authentic and want to engage. Conveys the richness and diversity of a place or culture, and is active and involving both for visitors and the host communities. One of the great things that we are trying to explain is that while we want to get all these wonderful visitors who are going to spend a lot of money, we also want our local residents to understand how important it is and how they can share their story. We have a municipal election coming Tuesday, and one of the major issues is some of the people who live in the historic district are very disturbed by the fact that all these visitors are there and they take up the parking places, and they, park in front of their houses. And we're trying to say, we don't have a tourism problem, we have a transportation problem, and that's so typical of many communities in that area. So you have to engage the visitor and the resident to the extent there's a mutual understanding of the benefits. It creates new tourism product from people, does not depend on high levels of new capital investment. That's the one I like. In my primary job as an arts administrator, I'm a bean counter at heart. I really want to understand that I don't have to build an arena. I don't have to build a stadium. I don't have to build a golf course. I don't have to make a development. I already have the cultural, physical assets. The infrastructure already exists that is simply underutilized. It recognizes the dynamic and changing nature of the culture, develops visitor and site management programs, and that's really one of the key issues that all of you face as you expand your cultural tourism offering. We call it, Are You Tourism Ready? Are you ready to take this increased number of visitors? Do you have the customer service aspects? Do you have the physical infrastructure? Do you have extra porta potties if you need them? Those types of things. Develops interpretive programs designed to inform, and I'll talk about that later. Minimizes the environmental degradation and cultural exploitation. Tells the true story. And is carefully targeted to meet the interest of particular market segments. Not every tourist is going to like us. Hate to say that. Some people like opera, some people like theater, some people like old houses, some people like parks. Not everyone has the same view, and not everyone is going to want to participate with us. But how do we define the ones and find the ones that do want to? So here's some numbers. We're talking about a really extraordinary universe. U.S. adult population of 170 million people, and this is from 2013. The group that does this Mandela research, Laura Mandela works a lot with Americans for the Arts and other tourism bureaus in terms of their research, and really has done an excellent job. You can buy her research online and she has a newsletter, well worth it. If you're really going to look at this from a DMO point of view. But the leisure travelers of 71%, that's a lot of people get out there and travel. And of that 71%, 76% refer to themselves as cultural and heritage travelers. That's a wonderful market size. There's a lot of people who want to see what we're doing. The benefits, cultural and heritage travelers spend more, $1,200 generally for a trip, $1,300 for cultural and heritage. I think it's actually greater than that. We've had some studies in Florida that it's about 50% more than the general tourists. Cultural and heritage travelers prefer taking a trip where there is a mixture of activities. They just don't want to do one thing. And this diversity supports a partnership strategy with other segments of the destination, which is why we work carefully with our Visitor Convention Bureau, our DMO, Destination Marketing Organization, and our local hospitality industry, the restaurants, the accommodations industry, and such. So there are 5 segments that Laura has identified that I think are really critical. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can read them in the presentation later. But the ones I'm really interested in are the passionate cultural and heritage leisure travelers, what we call the seekers. These are the folks who really want to find you. You know, they participate to a larger extent than other segments, and for a large percentage of this group, these activities are the driver of destination choice. So you got a ready-made 23 million U.S. travelers are looking to come to your place because it's authentic and they want to, but they have to be able to find you. So it's both a marketing and a PR activity. There's a well-rounded, active cultural heritage travelers open to experience all types of activities while on a leisure trip, including cultural or heritage activities. Yeah, we went to the beach. Yeah, we took a boat ride. But now there's this cute little museum down the road. Let's go check in with that. So you've essentially got almost 50 million people who are really interested in what we're doing. The aspirational, they've got limited experience because they really don't know much about arts and culture and heritage, but they're willing to learn. There's the self-guided. I think many of us have been in that self-guided. You know, we go out, we look around, and we accidentally bump into something that we like, and then we tell other people. And then there's the keeping it light. You know, leisure travelers that don't seek out heritage and cultural activities, but will attend what they perceive as fun. They're nice, but okay. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time and money on trying to get them to my place because they're just going to pop in anyway on an occasion. So why does this work? Why is this so important for all of us? Well, it's important for three areas. First of all, for our sites and organizations. Secondly, for the culture and heritage travelers themselves. And thirdly, for our accommodations and hospitality industry partners. We are all in this together. They want to sell hotel rooms and sell restaurant meals. We want to find a way to get people to our sites, and we need to work together. For cultural heritage sites and organizations, one of the big things I've recognized in my management time with arts councils and with professional theaters is it's a very different world than it was even 10 years ago. The business model of the nonprofit has changed. Philanthropy and social responsibility, which was our normal donations, doesn't exist anymore. Now the corporate and foundations are making decisions to support your organization based on marketing or return on investment. That's a very, very different look. So how do we look at what we do to be able to tell them, you need to support us because we can provide you with a return on investment, whether it's branding, whether it's employee engagement, whether it's some other form of return on investment that is not simply give us the money and we'll put your name in the program. There's the product and identity branding. That's also a key component. Our messaging from an arts and culture side has been rather weak. We talk about the importance of history, but we don't talk about our connection to the community, our connection to other people. And so we need to brand that, and I'll talk a little bit about branding later. One of the areas I'm really interested in is the earned income potential in this changing business model, is that the cultural and heritage traveler really doesn't have price resistance. They will spend almost anything if it's good. They'll stay in a higher-end hotel, they'll eat in the higher-end restaurants. The ticket price to, for instance, a theater company or the admission price to your site or whatever you have makes no difference. It is a relatively minor factor of the overall cultural and heritage experience. So don't worry about price points. If you need to create something out of it, and in many cases, the more you charge, the more perceived value there is. Underutilized capacity. Almost every one of us could handle a few more people. We have either unsold seats, we have more room in our historic site or our tours for more people, and it doesn't cost us any more. maybe an extra volunteer at times, but the underutilized capacity is a monetizing function that we can all take advantage of. For a lot of community members, cultural and heritage travel, the non-residents pay for a lot of the resident responsibilities. This is specifically true in historic preservation. If you have a lot of old houses that need maintenance, a lot of the property tax residents, and we're facing this in St. Augustine, we've got a lot of old buildings, fortunately, because that's our attraction. But they cost a lot of money to maintain. If we had to put it on the tax base or we had to do something locally, we'd be out of luck. But the visitor, the cultural and heritage travelers, will pay a good portion of that. And that's a message we are trying to sell in our community as well as you can sell yours. The people who come in are actually going to spend some money and keep your tax base low. The preservation and restoration and renovation that generates new revenue streams from the cultural and heritage traveler. We're all looking for that extra buck to repair the broken window or to fix the leak in the roof or to pay in a higher cost guest artist. The new revenue streams that we can look at from this increase in cultural and heritage travel will make a huge amount of difference. How do we do that? NASCAR and Mozart meet YouTube. This is one of my fun stories. When I was in the theater world, we're trying to figure out how do we keep people engaged, and particularly as we get forward into the new generations. One of the issues we did in the theater is we looked at the idea of how do we take the NASCAR model and apply it to professional theater performances. And what I mean by that, if you've ever watched the stock car race on television, they listen in to the talk between the pit crew and the driver, and they talk about this. So I'm saying, oh, how do we do this on the theater? With iPhones and iPads and everything else. I said, why can't someone who goes to a theater performance listen into the stage manager call the cues backstage and engage them that way? So we talk about that. We talk about the changing product in the symphony. One of the things, I'm in the theater world, I'm not in the music world, but one of the things, when I went to a Mozart concert, the conductor turned around and said, we don't have as many orchestra players, we don't have as many musicians on stage as we normally do. And I'm going, yeah, I noticed that. They only had like 40. I said, why? Because in Mozart's time, a lot of the instruments we have today hadn't been invented. That's a story I didn't know. That's a story that we want to tell our audiences. Everyone has that story. So for the cultural and heritage travelers, what are they looking for? The engagement. Did I get involved enough to do an Instagram photograph? Did I post it on Facebook? Authentic. Is it real? Are you trying to fool me? Was that story really true? Better be true. The quality experience. You can have authenticity and you can have engagement, but is it good? Unique. Where else can you get it? One of the things that we talk about in St. Augustine is everybody's got a beach. Everybody's got a lot of old houses. Even some communities have a fort, but we've got a real fort. Does it add value? And this is something I learned a while ago, is that we're talking about added value. Everybody talks about added value. Well, what is value? Value is the difference between expectation and experience. Everyone who visits your site, visits your auditorium, has an expectation going in. And that expectation usually starts when they leave the house in their car and they go there. Is that expectation going to be fulfilled? Well, value is what they get when you exceed that expectation. So we always want to, and if you've ever had your car serviced, and right now everyone says, if we don't meet your expectations, please let us know. We want the highest one. The other thing I think it's really important that we have to recognize is that with the rise of technology, particularly the cell phone, Instagram, Facebook, is that every one of our events is a self-curatorial experience. I have friends in the theater say, oh, we don't get reviews anymore. I say, yes, you do. You get a review through Twitter or Facebook virtually before you get out of the theater. People are posting it on Facebook. And there's nothing you can really do to control that. That is people's experience. They're going to tell you whether it was good or bad, and it's going to go viral, or they're going to tell other people. So that self-curatorial experience is really extraordinary as we go forward. And for the accommodations and hospitality industry, if you're in the hotel or the restaurant business, I first learned this term when I went to St. Augustine, ADR, average daily rate. Difference between a hotel room that's $119 a night and $199, that's a very substantial difference to a hotelier. Increase the days. If you've seen the MasterCard commercial on television with the little kids talk about vacation, that's part of a major national advertising brand called One More Day. What we found out from Brand USA and Visit USA is that people aren't taking all their vacation days. So the sales point on a national campaign, which we can all enjoy, is one more day. Take that one more day. Spend an extra day. Spend the extra dollar. The cultural and heritage traveler is a lower impact guest. Used to talk about this. Would you rather have 15 teenagers sharing one room and leaving cans of beer around, or would you like to have an older couple who makes the bed and cleans the bathroom? The association with quality sites. You're all quality sites. That's an important part that the lodging industry wants to have. And the lodging and hospitality partnerships. Part of what we're trying to do with our folks in St. Augustine is develop packages. So that just like when you go on Expedia or anything else that says flight, hotel, and car, we want to be able to say ticket, entry, accommodations, restaurant reservation. So let me just quickly talk about some of the things. I know I'm running out of time here. So St. John's, our branding, as we talked about, this wide and this deep, how do we create the idea of culture and heritage tourism as a brand? Well, we said we have culture around every corner. We can fill every niche. We have arts, we have galleries, we have music, we have everything else. So we developed this pennant system, culture around every corner. And I want you to notice that the white negative space in the middle of the pennants, that's the graphic of the Castillo de San Marco, our fort. So we did some research. Respond to tourism demand for high-quality events, design programs based on research on what visitors want, and we created a new strategic plan for the Cultural Council that emphasizes these areas. We have an annual grant funding program. We provide grants for cultural tourism, marketing, and development to symphony orchestras, festivals, things like that. Half of that grant then goes back. They have to market out of county. I know marketing out of county here is going to be tough because it's a long way away to the mainland. But we have a cultural tourism marketing program, and I can share some of that. Well, I'm running out of time, but I'll share some of that with you later. The development of new products and promotion. We are looking for the kind of authenticity, but we also recognize that the existing organizations and sites may not be doing everything that the visitor wants, so we are putting money into product development. And services to the cultural industry for us is technical assistance and professional development. A lot of our arts and cultural organizations, heritage organizations, are volunteer-run or with very minimal staff, and we want to prepare them to market and to sell their products and to grow in a way, so we're providing a lot of professional development and technical assistance to help them increase capacity, is what we call it. Our marketing plan is based on these 6 areas. The objectives. The lower left-hand corner, I hope you can read it. We've identified in that seeker market that we want key decision makers who are affluent. Don't mean to be elitist, but that's really what we're going for. Affluent women from key segments. The women out there know that when you talk about a vacation, your husband will say, oh, let's go here, and you'll say, no, we're going to go somewhere else. You're the decision maker, and we want, and you're the person we want to reach, and so our messages are based for you. The baby boomer couples, we recognize that the baby boomer generation, what we call the pig through the python, if you remember that expression, is it 65 million baby boomers are going to start retiring, and there's a huge cadre of relatively wealthy people who are looking for knowledge, who have time. So we are looking at the baby boomer generation, not simply because it's a bigger market, but they also have time, and they can also come midweek. Our hotels are sold out on Fridays and Saturdays, but they're not sold out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so we are preparing programs based on that size. We're looking for families. There is some family components that we want to do. Now I'm just going to, and I'm sorry I'm running over, but I'm going to run with a couple stories here. These are examples of 3 organizations in St. Augustine. The St. Augustine Lighthouse and Museum, it's an archaeological site, but they do a See Your History weekend. It's an immersive experience. Saturday and Sunday experiences celebrate this culture and those that shaped it. Guests will learn about maritime archaeology, how to build a boat from an era bygone, the lives of people who lived here, the role lighthouses played in the shaping of our maritime nation, and how all this relates to tell the true story of Florida's historic coast. We're engaging authenticity. The Maritime Heritage Foundation, we gave them a small grant. They're creating a quick and dirty boat building contest, which is really kind of interesting. But even more so, they're beginning or have begun to construct a boat, a chalupa, which is a wooden boat using traditional methods that the Spanish used. The boat is the size of the one that Columbus's fleet sailed on. It's only about 35 feet long, and they probably had 25 or 30 people living on that boat as they came across. We also have the Saturday and Sunday morning with interactive lectures and a deeper understanding of the arts and culture. The final one is one I'm really interested in. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of reenactments. We've had pirate raids that have burned down the city. We do battles. We do a whole bunch of things. But the one that really interests me is the School of the 16th Century. If you can go somewhere for a weekend and spend, in this case it's at the Fountain View Park, you will become immersed in the School of the 16th Century, where your living history will be to learn how to shoot a musket, how to sew clothes without a sewing machine, how to cook a whole animal, how to fire the black powder weapons with pike and armor, and the list goes on. And we're doing this not simply to provide the experience with the visitor, but also to recruit future reenactors, because it's a big deal. We know that the Civil War reenactments are huge in Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina. Our reenactments actually go back to the 1560s. So did you know? And this is where you come in. As we make the break for the next series, and I'm sorry I didn't get to the marketing plan, but I want each of you to turn to somebody else and have your own did you know. What is it about your site, your organization, your story that somebody else doesn't know? I told you about the African American experience. I told you about the fort. But each of you and each of your organizations has a did you know story that probably nobody else knows about, that's worthy of telling. So as you leave here and you begin to engage for the rest of the afternoon, tell your story. Switch off, have somebody tell you. So I have enjoyed speaking to you. I hope I've helped you clarify some of the things that we are doing. I'll be glad to talk with anybody afterwards, but I really appreciate your having me. And enjoy the rest of the afternoon. I have learned so much today that I can't wait to come back, and I'm looking forward to this afternoon session. So thank you very much.